Hi everybody, Matt from Ontario Rubber Installations here. I'm just here to answer some frequently asked questions that we get often when we're out doing quoting or just talking to everybody in our lives. First question that we most often get is, what is pour-in-place rubber surfacing? So that is a mixture of EPDM granules and a polyurethane binder that is then troweled and closed by hand to finish the pour-in-place surface that has a curing time of around 24 to 48 hours. And that's typically what you would see around pools, the tops of playgrounds, and other things. Second most frequent question that we get is, how much does pour-in-place rubber surfacing cost? Pour-in-place rubber surfacing can have quite a big range from $13 upwards to $25 a square foot. This is just because every job that we go see has different subsurfaces with different conditions and requires different amounts of material, time on the project. But if you're going to be bracketing, a $13 to a $25 is a perfect range to work for. The third most frequently asked question is, how long does rubber surfacing last? So rubber surfacing can typically last from 15 to 25 years with proper maintenance and care. To accomplish this, we recommend that every 5 years, at least, you do a re-roll of the surface, which is just going over top of the existing rubber with the same polyurethane binder that we used in the installation. The fourth most frequently asked question that I get is, what can rubber surfacing go over? So the versatility of rubber surfacing allows you to go over a multitude of different subsurfaces, from concrete, exposed aggregate, interlock, asphalt, and some tiles. Things that we cannot go over that would have to be removed include enamel-based tiles, non-pressure treated wood or wood that is decaying, and anything that is covered with a latex paint, because it will stick to the paint and then separate from the surface underneath. Fifth most frequently asked question is, does rubber surfacing get hot? This is primarily for people for front entrances or around pools, because you have kids running around with sensitive feet or pets. Rubber surfacing does get warm in the July heat, but it will be more forgiving than stone and concrete. However, if you choose darker mixtures, anything with more than a 50% black ratio in it, this will increase the amount of heat that it will conduct throughout the day, but you still don't have to worry with it compared to concrete or stone. Sixth most frequently asked question that we have is, what can I do in the winter time? How forgiving is it with maintenance and things like that? So primarily the cause for this is people worried about damaging their new pathway, their new entrance, their new driveway with shovels and snowplows. So the main thing that you have to look out for is, if you have a shovel, just use a non-metal tipped shovel and don't take your frustrations out on the rubber. You can use a snowblower, but we recommend that you raise the tracks up at least a centimeter, just so you're not dragging the metal directly onto the rubber. Ice doesn't stick to the rubber surfacing, so you don't really have to go at it as hard as you would with shoveling a concrete interlock or an asphalt driveway. And with winter maintenance in mind, often people ask, can I put salt on it? You can, but we do recommend using the blue ice melter, just because it's less harsh than crude rock salt. And in the spring, if you see any sort of salt lines like you would see on your boots, just power wash it and get rid of it, and you don't have to worry. The next question that we often get is, would rubber surfacing work for my driveway? A lot of people think that the wear and tear of a driveway is a little too harsh for rubber surfacing, but the innovations with resin allow us to use a harder resin for paving, and that allows you to have a surface that has a better structural integrity compared to re-asphalting your driveway. So when you do a rubber surface over an existing damaged driveway, you don't have to worry about cracking, any sort of shifting that will cause any deformation because of extreme heat in the summer. It doesn't become malleable under the sun. Weeds don't grow through it. And as we touched on earlier, ice doesn't stick to it, and it's better for winter maintenance. Another common question that we get is, what is the difference between EPDM rubber and SBR rubber? So SBR rubber is the recycled tire rubber that helps the environment, and it's often just a black granule that is often used in the paving portions for driveways and some pathways, and often the base for any sort of leveling that we might do around the house and for the bases of playgrounds. Whereas the EPDM rubber is used for all the top coats for our playgrounds that we do, and all of the top coats for any of the pool decks, entrances, and any of the colored rubber that you get around your home. Another question that we get that kind of touches on the use of the SBR granule and the EPDM granule is, how can you level out concrete with rubber surfacing? So to keep costs low for the consumer and for us for purchasing, it is best for using the base SBR rubber for leveling out any sort of sunken, cracked, or shifted concrete around your home. And then once that's cured, doing the top coat with the color that you desire to kind of match your house's aesthetic in the EPDM rubber. You might be thinking, why do we use black SBR rubber as the leveling component for any sort of shifted concrete instead of self-leveling concrete? It's not just so then we get more work to be able to do it. It's because the self-leveling concrete allows water to get underneath the old concrete and the new concrete, which causes shifting, cracking, and erosion of that underlying surface after a few years, whereas none of those things happen with the SBR rubber that we use to level things out. Plus, the SBR leveling really adds a lot of strength in those weak areas that we are leveling. If it's going over cracks that often shift with the freeze and thaw, having the rubber be the base allows a lot more plasticity and elasticity in the surface, so you won't see any sort of surface cracks. Another question that we often get is, how long is the installation process and how long is the curing time until I can walk on it? So the installation process is very non-invasive, and for most residential home applications, it's 1 to 3 days max if you're getting kind of more intricate things done like borders, coping wraps, designs, or have significant leveling that we have to do. The curing time is typically 1 to 3 days. The shift in that is primarily due to temperature and humidity. When it's very hot and humid, the curing time is reduced and you can walk on it within almost 24 hours. But when it's the cooler months in spring and in the autumn, you're looking at more to 3 days. This does also change depending on where the application is. So if we're doing your garage and your driveway, we typically like you to stay off of it for 4 days before you put vehicles and shelving in your garage, just because it's a lot more impact on the surface and you don't want any sort of curing while it's still malleable to occur with things on it, because if there's any sort of depressions, they will stay there forever. The next question we get is, how do I clean the surface? I'm not familiar with it. Do I hose it down? Do I vacuum it? So the best way to clean rubber is with a power washer, and we recommend that you use a power washer that has a setting from around 2,000 psi upwards to 3,500 psi. This is primarily going to be beneficial for the corner areas that water builds up, leaves sit there over the winter, they release tannins and start kind of discoloring the rubber. When you use a higher powered power washer, you're able to get rid of all of those issues, and any sort of higher stains that you can't get rid of in that way, you just add a simple solution of diluted Dawn dish soap and with warm water, let that sit on the surface for around 10 minutes before you begin your power washing, and you'll be okay. But every day-to-day maintenance, we recommend just the jet setting on a hose, a stiff bristle broom, and a leaf blower. And also with the cleaning, things that we often get asked, can you come clean this? I'm worried I don't want to hurt the surface that I just paid for, is shock and pool chlorine when they're topping up their pools and it spills on the surface and it leaves a milky residue. In those situations, you're free and clear just to use a power washer at around 3,000 psi to get rid of those stains. And the other thing that is a bit more tricky to get rid of that we do not recommend that you use if you got a colored driveway or a colored garage is certain types of tire shine to make your tires look brand new. It leaves almost a yellow stain on the rubber that does not come out. So if you're going to be using that kind of tire shine on your nice new vehicle, we recommend that you either have strips done where you're going to be parking the vehicle in black rubber so it doesn't leach into colored rubber, or just going with a very dark or black driveway or garage in the first place, or just not using the tire shine. Another question is, why would I choose rubber over a less expensive option like epoxy? So epoxy, while it does look great and it does last, it only really lasts in very warm climates where there is no seasonal shift to create any sort of cracks with the freeze and thaw. Rubber, on the other hand, in those situations when there's cracking or shifting, will flex with the freeze and thaw, and you don't have to deal with any sort of maintenance or cracked things that you just spent a lot of money on. So the next question that we get is rubber surfacing waterproof? Rubber surfacing by itself, if you're just getting an SBR layer done or an EPDM layer done, is not waterproof. It is semi-permeable, which is good for water percolating through and kind of not showing as much pooling. But if you're looking for a waterproof option, there are ways that we can do the installation that will divert water and create a waterproof surface. This is done through that similar base layer SBR that we were talking about, and then adding a waterproofing membrane on top of that, and then going on top with the EPDM layer to finish off the surface. Next is more oriented for around pools and the common questions that we get about them. So with rubber surfacing around pools, it is compatible with safety anchors. Around 90% of pools that we come across have safety covers and are worried about the pool anchors being inhibited because of the rubber surfacing going on top. So to negate that and make them still functional, we raise the pool anchors the same thickness that we do the rubber and bring it up flush with the rubber surface. With that, there's still around 7 or 8 revolutions left in the pool anchor, which is more than adequate to be able to put your safety cover on. So the next is, how do we finish rubber surfacing around the edge of the pool? So with most installations, we just bring the rubber up to the edge of the concrete and bring it in flush with the edge of the pool coping. We take out a 45-degree angle cut of concrete around the pool. That is adequate so then we can put the rubber surfacing nice and thick all the way to the edge of the coping. Other finishes for different types of bullnose coping, if it's either a live stone edge or a curved kind of plastic coping. So in that sense, we can do a coping wrap, which is typically done as a coping wrap border, because it is one of the most tedious things to install to get done to the same professionalism and quality as the rest of the pool deck. So having a pool coping done with a border is definitely the better option. Another question around pools is, what happens if I have a plumbing repair and we have to dig into the concrete? So we've already thought of that prior. So what we do at the end of every installation is we leave a bag of pre-mixed rubber with you that you can tuck away in a crawl space and forget about until you have that unfortunate plumbing problem with the pool and you have to dig into the concrete and remove some of the rubber. So with having that bag set aside, it just helps ensure that the dye lots are the same, the mixture is the same, and that any patches that are going to happen is from the same batch that we did the rest of the pool deck. All right, so the next question that we often get when deciding to do a certain color for a pool deck or for anywhere around the house is, what is ambering? So during the sales process, the salesperson will tell you that some colors, mostly earth tones, browns, beiges, reds, those can be done with a different type of polyurethane resin. So that is an aromatic resin that has an ambering phase. And all that is the resin reacting with ultraviolet rays and starts to kind of turn a yellowish hue. It takes around 1 full season of UV exposure to burn that ambering away. We do not offer that resin when doing any sort of the stone colors, because the ambering and yellowing that occurs on top of grays looks very bad, and we would not offer that to you because we want you to enjoy and love your surface. And this helps explain why some prices are higher and some prices are lower, depending on what you choose. So on the topic of colors, you are able to customize your own colors. So if you have anything that you would like to suggest for your area, please give us a call and we'll help you out.